it's not about the money. It's about how you do life.
Mm-hmm.
Who you are, that standard, that human being. Then the money, I found, comes in waves. I used to chase the money first, and that's why it was a disaster for me, because it amplifies where you're currently at in life.
Hi, I'm Tim Bratz, and every week I sit down with the top influential entrepreneurs in the country to discuss how to leave a true legacy in all things happiness, health, wealth, and wisdom. This is the Legacy Podcast. Hey folks, welcome to the Legacy Podcast. I am your host, Tim Bratz. Today I'm sitting down with somebody who I have an immense amount of respect for, who's helped me through some really tough times when I was building my portfolio and navigating some difficult circumstances, Mr. Bobby Castro. And Bobby is an entrepreneur. He is a business owner. He has sold a business multiple times, actually, fractions of it. You're going to hear about that. And his final exit was for $1 billion valuation. He currently owns over $750 million of commercial real estate. He does some coaching, and he does a lot of really, really good stuff. In fact, I think he's got a coaching event at the end of April 25, 26, 27, that I'm going to be at, his Stack and Rack boot camp. So we'll get you guys details on all that stuff. But Bobby is the man and somebody I deeply look up to. And here's the thing. There's a lot of people who make a lot of money. There's a lot of people who are great business folks. But what resonates the most with Bobby to me is his values. He prioritizes family. He prioritizes his health. He prioritizes relationships far more than making money. And then the money is a direct result of those prioritizations. And so just an amazing guy from a core value standpoint, and somebody that I think we can all look up to. So Bobby, excited to have you here, brother.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, dude. I really appreciate you having me on your podcast. You are one as well that I highly respect and think highly of. So thank you for having me.
Oh, man. So thank you for being here. And you got 1,000 things going on. And so it means a lot that you're here. I'd love to share, I know your story, but a lot of other folks who might be listening may not know. Can you give me a high level of how you built the business and kind of what that process looked like, and then we'll dive into kind of what you're working on right now and what some of your goals are over the next couple of years.
Absolutely, Tim. And by the way, I wrote a book called Upsiders, really how to upside your life. It's a free book. It's on my Instagram, official Bobby Castro. You can go to the link, and it's even bilingual and all that. So I recommend anybody to really read the book. But I also want to remind, if I may, Tim, a stat, because I'm so fixated on stats. 80% of books that are purchased, majority of them never get opened. The 20% that do get opened, the majority never get finished. So it's even worse when someone recommends or it's a free book. So don't fall victim to that. But that book could change your life. There's some basic fundamentals, really quick read. But I only have a 9th grade education. Come from a city called Hialeah. I was born in New York in the Bronx. Come from a mom that worked her entire adult life as a waitress. Before Denny's, it was Sambo's. She worked on the graveyard shift where folks like you and I, after a wedding, 2, 3 in the morning, that awesome waitress, that was my mom. She walked home. She didn't drive home because there was no car to drive home. And then at 3 o'clock, she went to another gig with another costume at Pasquale's on Red Road in Hialeah to be a waitress there as well in a retail plaza at an Italian restaurant. We grew up on Section 8, grew up in affordable housing like a lot of people have. So my story is really no different than a lot of other stories. The only difference is the outcome was a little different than maybe most. And what I was able to accomplish was all from clarity. And it took me a while to understand that word clarity. We hear it a lot. And through a lot of challenges, and I go a little bit in my book, I left the 9th grade, and back then it was junior high. It wasn't even high school. And you're talking about 14 years old. Education school system wasn't for me. Matter of fact, at the 3rd grade, I failed, and that's in public systems. Nobody fails at the 3rd grade. So the point being is that you don't have to really be very sharp to start getting sharp. And I figured that out. And I've now been married 35 years to an incredible wife, Sophie. I have 3 grandchildren. My 3rd one's coming up any day now. I have Ocean, who's 9. Oakley, who's 6. I have 2 amazing children and their spouses. Priscilla's 34 years old. Brandon's 28. Me and Sophie got really together, as you can imagine, really young. and we got pregnant by accident, and we got married because we got pregnant. We were totally broke. I moved into Sophie's family's house. They were a real hardworking Latino family in Hialeah. And I used to be a big flash dancer. I was and I talk about it in my book, a flash dancer, Tim, is somebody that is completely lost, that doesn't realize one is lost. I used to wear fake Rolexes when I was broke. I used to be a liar. I used to not be a good husband, not a good person. I do believe in change because I'm not that person today. And I continue to get excited to meet that next version of Bobby. I'm so fixated on it. And so I want to really tell people you can change your situation. You are the problem, but you're also the solution. Fast forward through a lot of struggles. I was waiting at tables at the Rusty Pelican, Key Biscayne, and selling memberships at the Better Business Bureau during the day. I had 2 jobs. Well, before that, I had no job. I was actually living in Sophie's house, not even working. One day, Sophie pulls up with a black Mustang. I talk a little bit about my book. She's working at a medical office as a secretary, and she's pulling up at 5 o'clock, and I'm just coming out of her house with no job. That day forever changed my life because something hit. My daughter, Priscilla, who's 34 now, back then, she was a little peewee in the back seat, and they were both looking at me really peachy because we live in South Florida, and the humidity is really tough. There was no air conditioning, reverse fumes in the Mustang. I felt this small. I felt that some people I felt like a loser. I felt really scummy. Whatever the feeling was, I felt that. The next day, I went out, and I started where I was actually at, right here. I got 2 jobs, not 1 job. Went back waiting on tables, like I mentioned, the Rusty Pelican. Got another job, Better Business Bureau. Fast forward, I started getting my act together. I had an addiction, a legit addiction, just like somebody on drugs, alcohol, gaming. My addiction was the classified ads. Back then, there was no internet. I used anything that said, make $10,000 a month, become rich. Whatever that said, I sent away for a package. And I would sit there at Sophie's house while her parents were working, while her family was working, while she was working, and I was not. I was that person that was just blah, 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 talker. I'm going to do this, do that, do nothing. Fast forward, did see her mother, who's no longer here. She died of lung cancer. She loaned me $1,700, and I'm going really fast on this. $1,700. I needed $1,700 to start a business. After burning bridges after bridges, relationships after relationships. This lady, back in the day, dude, these ladies had everything in their bra. 100 keys to 100 doors, the black phone book, and then the beeper, and then all the cash a family had. And it was just give or take around $1,700. She loans me the $1,700. That's $1,700 without getting any investors, without getting any bank loans. I had no credit, as you can imagine. I had bad credit, as you can imagine. The $1,700 took me to sell a company for $250 million. And then not only did that, then a year after that, sold it for $600 million. This is all cash. There's no stock transfer, no paper transfer. And then 3 years thereafter, $1 billion. So the message here is change is exciting, it's powerful, and it does exist, but only from clarity. And then throughout the years before we sold the company the very first time, I started having a different relationship with money because my family was broken. I come from a generational pattern where we didn't understand money. We didn't understand how to compound it. We thought only the rich get richer. We started buying the roughest assets you can buy, little townhome, anything that have 4 walls, buying them for $20,000, financing here and there. And it took us throughout the years to build a portfolio that stands strong today at $750 million that gives me and my wife every single month, whether rents are flat, whether rents are here, gives us $550,000 consistently every single month. That's along with multiple streams of 6-figure incomes in different buckets. The message here, man, if you live in the United States of America, you're physically and mentally healthy, this is possible for you. I didn't raise any money included for the real estate. What I know now, would I have? Absolutely, because I would have gotten there faster versus later, but I'm grateful because I made so many mistakes along the way, scaling the company to over 1,000 employees coming from no education.
It's amazing. I mean, it is an American dream of a story. And there's a lot of ups and downs and cycles and peaks and valleys throughout it. And there's a lot to unpack. So first off, what kind of business was it?
We created the very first fintech. Fintech is in financial technology. So I had this fixation. How can I get more margin on a deal? I was a loan broker, basically, at the end of the day, equipment leasing and financing. If you needed a medical piece of machine or a forklift, I was the broker that arranged the lender and you to buy that, and the lender would give me a commission. It started that way. And I got it from a classified ad. Remember that addiction I had?
Yeah.
My wife told me she was going to leave me if I didn't stop. I stopped without her knowing. Check this out, dude. Without her knowing, it's like I hit that syringe again and I hit a classified ad in USA Today. I hit a classified ad. They sent the package to me, equipment leasing and finance, a package. And then you remember I was working at a waiter at night, and during the day I was selling memberships, calling business owners. And I worked on Red Road. Every morning they will give you a stack of leads to call. On the top of the stack, it was the same company who sent me the package. The lights went off. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh. I put the best sales presentation on. I went to their office. The old guy says, listen, I think the Better Business Bureau is a total scam. I don't need it. However, kid, I'll buy this $200 membership if you come work for me. I said yes on the spot without even really understanding it, because I just got the package. I really didn't even dig into the package. That day forever changed my life, meeting one person.
It's insane, right?
Yep.
There are certain steps in life and certain things that you do, and you create your own destiny. And then there's these serendipitous moments that are like, this is life either whispering at me or hitting me with a hammer of like, this is something I have to at least pursue a little bit further in order to understand, because it's not just a coincidence, right? It's got to be something more than that, something's pushing you in that direction. It's powerful, man. So all right, so you go and you start building this business. And so you started out as initially a salesperson there, and then you left and eventually created your own company doing something similar.
I was a salesperson, and he was like almost a mentor, man. He was coaching me just in life in general. He was real successful, very old. He had two sons that were in their 50s, struggling with narcotics. And one day, and he lived on Las Olas, where now I've been living for 25 years, and it's like, I always wanted to, when I used to have to take him home with Sophie's car, drop him home because he couldn't really see well. And I used to manifest, say, man, this is incredible. He took a liking to me, and talk about relationships, social capital is so powerful. Immediately I understood, I respected him. I wanted to just get everything out of him like a sponge. And he was just cascading so much knowledge to me. Fast forward about a year or under a year, he said, listen, Bobby, I'm checking out. My kids are a disaster. You already know the story. And this is what the $1,700 happened. He hands me a phone book. He goes, you tell everyone that I gave you their number. These were the lenders. These were his intimate relationships, everything. I went to reach for it here on Broward Boulevard when I was dropping them off. He pulls it back. I want you to pay for it though. We agreed to, and he didn't need the money, $1,700.
But it was everything that you had or everything that your in-laws had. And he knew how much weight that carried if you actually had to write that check.
He knew some of my stories too, my challenges. Again, he was like almost a mentor, and I paid for it. And that was the $1,700 that Dixie loaned me. That phone book, dude, those relationships pivoted me to what the story was, where I finally exited for $1 billion with no investors.
Do you think the paying for it
yes
made you pay attention?
Yes, because again, he knew what I was trying to be was that better Bobby. And you see, when someone's successful and someone truly cares, and you meet that integrity, and when preparation meets opportunity, it really starts jiving together in a good way. And he wound up dying. Real nice dude. Lived on Gordon. Now I live on Seven Isles. And 1000%, yes, I do.
It's amazing. And I think there's something to be said about having somebody like realizing that you're not where you want to be. I wish I was further ahead. I wish I was a better person. I wish I was a better husband. I wish I was a better dad. And having somebody that you respect so much that has achieved all these amazing things, and them being able to see that in you and breathe that life into you and breathe that confidence into you, then gives you a level of confidence and a level of, I want to be the person that they see me that I could be, you know? And you show up better and you work harder and you're more intentional with your relationships and how you show up at home and in the workplace. And I think that's so important to have those mentors in your life. Where would you find those mentors? How would you suggest somebody go and find those mentors and find those people and who can instill that level of confidence and breathe that kind of inspiration into them, so that way they you're kind of seeking it, but at the same time it just it'll naturally occur if you show up. Where would you find mentors
I
today?
I talk heavily about in my book, distractions. Distractions were the killer in my life. It suffocated me. They're everywhere. All these individuals. There's individuals like you, like us. Social media is so powerful, but unfortunately, everyone doesn't even realize on LinkedIn, on Instagram, wherever it is, there is bona fide relationships. Really successful people want to help people. I used to find that, oh, no, they're out for something. I didn't understand because that's how I was brought up. So they're in front of you, but in order to see them, for me, you have to clear out a lot of crap in your life because you're getting so many inbounds. Every day as I'm speaking, I'm going through 70,000 thoughts a day. That's 77 thoughts a minute. Can you imagine the inbound besides this thing, besides that? So what happens is clarity, focus. That's where this legacy obsession came in my life, where I wanted to make an impact on my legacy. I want to break the generational curse, how I grew up, the mindset. I had to get around people that had a better abundance of a mindset. In order to do that, you have to first, I didn't realize this. It took me even a while. I made many mistakes over and over because I kept reverting back, not releasing people from your life. You've got to be releasing people before you can add, because if you don't release every one of them, you're never going to clearly see what's in front of you.
Mm-hmm. So many people think I need to do this. I need to add that. I need to increase this. You get just as much growth by removing negativity, by removing toxicity, by removing the bad influences in your life, and maybe even more so than adding good influences, right?
Absolutely.
Just by crowding out the bad stuff. Like for me, I love to eat, right? And I work out a lot and I exercise and I try to eat healthy, but I got kids and they eat the best stuff, right? They eat the nuggets and the mac and cheese and the cookies and all. And I'm like, I don't like to waste. I come from a blue collar background. I'm like, you got to eat everything on your plate, right? And when they don't, I'm like, well, I got to eat it then. So the way that I get beyond that is I crowd out the negativity by overeating the positive stuff, right? And I do more of the healthy stuff and I fill myself up on the vegetables and the fruits and the proteins. And that way I'm not even hungry to want to eat the carbs and the sweets and stuff. And I think there's something to be said of like, just get, because it's hard. You've seen the studies where it's like the kids and they sit down and they're like, you get one cupcake right now, or you can get two cupcakes in 2 hours. And they start looking at which kids were able to then actually wait and defer their satisfaction and push that down the road and not be influenced by this thing that's sitting right in front of them. And it wasn't that the kids saw so much value in getting 2 cupcakes or that they couldn't stand not eating the cupcake. It was the ones that just distracted themselves and went and did something else. They just didn't even realize the time passed and they came back and there were 2 cupcakes, right? And so it's like, how do you do that in business? You just kind of not think about the negative stuff, remove that from the picture, go and do something. Or, I think about how do we implement that as an adults, right? In order to then have that deferred
It's a quick 30-second story, and I'm going to show you and prove to you and to everyone, if you got to be vulnerable and humble, because if you're stuck, you're frustrated. I don't care if you're making $1 million a year, you're making 10, you're making $100,000 a year. You can make so much more. So started my business, the fintech company. We had a house I grew up in, and it's a house that a lot of my family members, a lot of chaos, a lot of passion. I've had family members that have OD'd on narcotics. I have the same story as a lot of families. So this one house my mother finally bought, nobody ever wanted to live there again. It was just really a lot of history there. Well, starting over, I had no other choice. So I had my little baby, Priscilla, have my wife. I'm really feeling good. Just coming off of that book I bought for $1,700. I'm really coming off it. I wanted to start, and then about maybe 6 months later, I said, babe, I need to move out of your parents' house. This is so unfair to them. I just want to do, my house is totally empty. No one's been there. Sophie and I went back there. We cleaned it up. I mean, I'd never seen that house. It looked like a model home, dude. It smelled so good. It was like, wow, this is a great home. I'm going to raise my family. I put the desk in there, plug in the phone, the fax machine. It was a fax machine back then. And I'm working during the day, but still waiting on tables at night. But I quit the Better Business Bureau because it was starting to go good. So I was starting to hit the phones, on the financial services. Sophie walks in, Tim. She says, Bobby, I can't live here, honey. I got to take the baby. I got to go back to my parents. And I said, Sophie, what do you mean? What's going on? Don't you see it? I said, see what? Where we're living? And I said, this place is awesome, this and that. And she looks at me like so shocking. And she goes, Bobby, look. You look and there's a screen full of ticks this size. I grew up ticks and fleas. I talk about it in my book, man. A lot of people have. I'm not the only one. I didn't even see that, Tim.
Wow.
It's almost like a hoarder. A hoarder doesn't see what is being built up. It's normal to them. And then you don't realize, my gosh, I just don't see it. And we moved out that same day. We went back to our parents. I was so freaking bummed out. And I started realizing, man, I got to really change this whole thing. And I started cutting people I love, family. And I started realizing and learning how to love people from a distance. It's not because they were bad people. In order to change my mindset, and I'm telling you, I struggled with it. And it started becoming clearer and better as I started cutting. And it sounds so bad to say that. So bad to say that.
Well, it's because you care about other people, right? You want success for them. And unfortunately, there's certain people that don't want it enough for themselves, and they're not willing to grow. They're not willing to go through the pain of personal development in order to then see that. And it's difficult. But at the same time, we realize, imagine somebody, Jim Rohn he's like, hey, imagine you got coffee and your worst enemy pour some sugar in your coffee and you drink that coffee. What happens? Well, nothing. I just drank some coffee with some sugar in it and nothing happens. All right. Well, what if your best friend, even by accident, takes your cup of coffee and they pour a little arsenic in it and you drank it? Well, you'd be dead, right? So the rule here and the understanding is you got to watch your coffee, meaning there's people in your life that love you, that care about you, that want, we think, the best for us, but they're pouring poison into our brain and into our life every single day.
Influence is powerful. Influence is powerful. I grew up in a family that only the rich get richer. My dad, that's all I heard about him. He was the best professor for entitlements. This is just how I grew up. And whether you like it or not, you're going to have that conversation when you go to a party, you see them, and it really influences our mind. You don't get 100% clean until you get 100% out. You can't.
Would you say that's step number one?
If you're hooked on crack, Tim, if you're hooked on crack and you hang out with one person that does crack, come on, dude. How are you going to get off the crack?
Yep. I was standing at the gas pump, pumping gas in my car almost, I don't know, a year and a half ago now. And one of the TVs starts talking and stuff. And it's one of these, online influencers. And she was talking about a study that was just done, a scientific study about how do you increase your luck. And they looked at all these factors and all these variables and all these different inputs of how do you increase your luck, which is a tough question because it's such an ethereal topic, right? And you know what they culminated it to? They brought it down to one thing that you can increase or decrease your luck by, this one actionable item, and that is who you surround yourself with. Because that influences your decisions. It's not even your choices or your decisions that you make, because those get influenced by who you're hanging around with, right? You're hanging around with you. You can't not have energy. You can't not have a positive mental attitude. You can't not have that. And versus, you hang around Eeyore over here, who's like, oh, life's hard. Things are difficult. And all of a sudden it's like, you hang out with the people who are eating apples every single day and ordering salads for lunch versus people who are getting the burgers and the French fries and all of a sudden you can't help yourself but going and grabbing a French fry.
It's so true, dude.
Remove the negative, and even by accident, let it backfill. Instead of 1 out of 10s, you backfill it with a 5 out of 10. And maybe there's a 2 out of 10, but there's probably a 10 out of 10 that ends up in your circle too. And like Jack Welch did with GE, you just every year just kind of clean out the bottom 10%.
The bottom 10%, no matter what. He was the best CEO on the planet. And that reminds me, Tim, a lot of people always ask me about multifamily, because we have about 2,500 units in multifamily. And Bobby, man, I want to learn about multifamily. I can't wait to start investing in multifamily. And you hear it over and over when I run into family members at a party, or I run into somebody at an event. They're always talking like, you still haven't done it? So Bobby, what should I do? If you want to learn about multifamily, join a multifamily mastermind. Join Tim's mastermind. Get around the information. Swim. Soak yourself down with the information, and you will learn about multifamily. You will learn courage. You will learn how to take risks. Learn what a cap rate is, what is, all these things that you're intimidated by because you're not swimming in it.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
If you're going to
100%.
continue swimming with this other crap, you're only going to talk for the rest of your life. You'll probably have $200,000 saved. You're saving to save. You're never going to invest it because you don't have courage, because you don't have confidence. The reason you don't have confidence, you don't have the information. The reason you don't have information, you're not around the information.
Exactly. 100%. And like when I come out to your event, we're going and touring several of your properties. We're going to go and walk several of these different deals and get a feel for it, understand how to find deals, how to underwrite deals, how to raise capital on those deals, securing financing, operations, exit strategies, all those different things. And from people who have been doing it for a long time at a high level. And it's that gives you the confidence. I think you need the formal education along with taking action, but you need to be doing both of them, right? Like I took a lot of action. I didn't have the formal education. And it took me a long time, and I got my legs taken out a few times and got punched in the gut a whole bunch of times. And I could have done it faster if I would have married up, but I didn't even know masterminds existed. It was like when I found Mark's, found his mastermind, and I was like mind blown that this support actually exists in different capacities for different industries and at different levels.
And you get excited, Tim, at least for me, when I started stimulating my mindset and around people of success in multifamily space, primarily multifamily, it's my favorite asset class in real estate, and I love real estate. It actually helped me personally to make more money. It helped me grow my business. Why? Because I know if I made more money, I earn more money, I can invest it into multifamily. These two things, these two quadrants, they were just growing because I couldn't wait to earn more money to shovel it back into multifamily. And think about that compound effect with your effort. It starts growing, and then this company just starts growing, because you get excited when you understand about multifamily, how the dynamics really work, how you can really increase and force valuation, force your net worth to increase, create wealth. It's like, man. And then I got into it crazy with a stat. It's been around forever. 1 penny a day. I keep repeating it like a parrot. 1 penny a day. A lousy penny that a homeless person will throw back at you. How dare you give me only a penny? That lousy penny a day compounded for a lousy 30 days equals to over $5 million bucks. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't finish there. 31 days, one extra day, $11 million. I got freaked out about this compound stuff. I start compounding my effort, start compounding my self-improvement. My communication skills got better. My people skills got better. My leadership got better. I got better as a husband, a father. I just started going at really rapid paces up.
It's amazing. This episode of the Legacy Podcast is brought to you by the Legacy Boardroom Mastermind. So our goal is to give as much free information away as humanly possible through all of our social media platforms and try to help people with their businesses, help people with their lives. We also have something for people who want more one-on-one attention, which is Legacy Boardroom. Legacy Boardroom is a board of directors for your business. If you are doing up to about $10 million a year in gross revenue, you're making some money, you got some good things happening, but maybe you can't afford a C-suite of executives, of a chief marketing officer, a chief operating officer, a chief investment officer, a chief human resources officer, and you need access to these fractional C-suite executives. That's what this was built for, at a fraction of the price of what you could find anywhere else in the marketplace. So it's my actual team who have built multiple 7 and 8 and 9-figure businesses and real estate portfolios that is available every single day of the week on these daily boardroom calls. So any questions that you have, you can hop on, ask questions about operations to my COO, ask questions about acquisitions to my CMO, ask questions about raising private money to my chief investment officer, or team building to my chief HR officer. So they're available for you 5 days a week. Any questions that you have, any hurdles that you're facing, anything that you need, these guys are available to help you break through any sort of barriers and take your business to the next level so that way you can build a business that is designed to feed your life and your lifestyle. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more, check out legacyboardroom.com. How have you, right, you got 2 beautiful children, got the beautiful grandkids. At what age were you when you sold the business for the first and really came into a lot of cash? How old were your kids actually?
So they deposited originally $25 million cash, not cash, $25 million wire transfer in our account. My wife was very overwhelmed. She started crying, and I said, I'm all over the place here, but what are you crying for, babe? She felt sorry for her family. I was not emotional. I was curious, like, that closed very quick. It closed all within a few months, by the way, the 250 million. Wow. That's a fast close. And as you and I in real estate, we're closing deals in 2-3 months. Think about that. That got me curious. I went down google.com land and I figured out that we gave the company away. I didn't understand the multiples like a lot of people don't understand cap rates in multifamily. Something I said, I got fixated on it. A year later, my brother, we went back to them saying, hey, we're going to take 19% more off because we sold 30% based on 250 million. They had the first right if we ever want to take anything else off. Well, exactly right under a year, went back to them. Hey, we're taking 19% more. We want to bring it to market, but and that'll leave us with 51% because we have 70% after we sold the 30%. We'll take it all day long. Perfect. But it's 600 million. You're crazy. No, I understand, but that's what we knew. We weren't crazy because we dove in the information and understood the mistakes we were making. And that's when I started realizing how to build a business called enterprise value quickly. 3 years later, $1 billion, I could have got more, but I wanted to settle. I wanted to be totally free, no carve outs, no liabilities, no nothing. I just wanted to fly free. So to answer your question, I'll be 58 years old, March 1st, coming up now in 2025. And I started, when I got in the business, Tim, I started making about, give or take, $25,000 a year. That story that goes back to maybe that first year, living in the townhouse with the fleas, and I moved back to my in-laws. 25,000, I quickly got to 50. Got to about $100,000 in about maybe 3 years, which was a lot of money for me back then. Quickly got to 250. Quickly got to the 500. Stayed at 500 for a little bit. Quickly.
And this is what year? This is like, I guess I'm trying to get to the kids and what age were the kids, and then raising kids with money, I think is kind of where I'm going with this.
I would say Priscilla was when we started really feeling that, okay, we're definitely in the upper class. I would say my daughter was 10 years old. She's 34 years old. She just turned 34 February 15th. 10 years old. We were living in high-end home. We were definitely a couple $1 million easy. We scaled it. When I sold my company, I was making about $20 million a year. It was a big, big cash cow. And I would say Priscilla was 10 years old, and she's today 34 years old.
So what has it been like for her and your son and your son's obviously, he's 6 years old, younger than her, right? So he was
5 years,
he was 4,
28 years
5
old.
years
Yeah,
old.
something like that. Yeah.
So they come in, dad's making a boatload of cash, living in a big house, driving nice cars, right? They never know want. What is it like raising those kids to be good human beings, and how do you keep them? I mean, that's my biggest fear, right? We were talking offline. I have gonna be 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 2-year-old at home. And my greatest fear is the entitlement aspect or the expectation of, like I took my daughter out and she wanted to buy her first rental house. And she's like, Dad, what about that one? She picks out the oceanfront house, 4 houses down from ours. That's an $8 million house. I was like, that's not how these rental properties work, baby. Let's go and look at some. And we look at a condo in a C- area. We look at a house with a tree growing through the deck. We look at another one that it had 1,000 cats that urinated in it, right? And she's like, where are we? What is this? What are we doing here? And so how have you been able to raise kids who are good, respectful, contributing members of society, and appreciate what you've done and the sacrifices you've made and the wealth that you've built in a capacity that they're not entitled or stuck up or anything.
Yeah. And by the way, I just want to footnote, a year later or 2 years later, I almost filed bankruptcy. Darkness came in my life, all because of my mistake. Go a little bit in the book that we could do another podcast. 2 years later, the magic really happened. That bad event, that mistakes and failures, they're treasures because there's lessons in there. I lost it all, my brother. But then when I learned the lesson, I said, just like when I we sold the company cheaper versus what we think we could have got more. That was a mistake. We learned the lesson. We pivoted in 1 year to 600 million. You learn that darkness was really when Bobby exploded, when Bobby became that better leader in his family, when Bobby started raising his kids with core values, not how he was raised, not because my parents did it wrong. They just were taught by their parents. I started really realizing to be the example. They're not listening to you. They're watching you. They're watching your behavior. Every time you say that F word and all that, and on social media, you'll never hear me ever say a bad word. Do I curse? Yes. Never on social media, because I know those are for my grandbabies. When they have a tough time in life, they can go back to the Papa's videos and get back up and fight. But they're never going to hear me be a slob ball. I carry myself at a higher standard. That's when I took off.
I love that. I love it. And you're leading by example, right? You're not telling them how to live, not telling them how to be. You're the one over tipping at dinner, right? You're the one saying thank you. You're the one picking up the trash on the beach walk and throwing away the litter, right? Like showing them by example of the kind of person that you want them to be by being and becoming that person. It's powerful, man. So a couple of years ago, when you and I met, almost a little over 2 years ago now, you were speaking at a small group of entrepreneurs. And this was the most difficult problem I've ever faced. And I was like, I'm usually the guy giving the advice in the room. I'm usually the one leading the discussions, or second in charge, kind of when Mark leaves the room, I'm the one asking questions, giving advice and all that. And it was like darkness, right? And long story short, right, I had this big deal. I didn't need to do the deal. I co-sponsored a loan for 2 other guys who were supposed to be the operators. Management company came in, implemented a bunch of fraud, stole a bunch of money, placed a bunch of unqualified tenants, like bad. This is a $100 million deal. And at that time, that month when I saw you, we had offers from buyers who wanted to come in and buy it for $25 million. We owed $70 million to the banks. And that's how bad of a position the property was in. And I was faced with a decision to make of I'd never been in this position before, right? And the one guy, a bad guy, but had money, but wouldn't bring it. Other guy, good, well-intended, but never built the muscle in order to be able to go raise money or fix this problem. So me, the passive guy, comes in. I got to then turn this ship around, or do I? And I remember raising my hand and saying, "Hey, man, I need help." And um, you asked me a question that slapped me in the face of, of putting me in my place of saying, "Tim, did you see yourself owning this property for the next 50 years?" And I was like, no, I thought I was going to make 6 million bucks in 2 or 3 years and then move on with life. And you said, that's the difference between where you are today and where billionaires are thinking, right? Like Elon Musk is talking about colonizing the moon 400 years from now when he's not even here. And you're worried about this year. You're worried about next year. You're thinking on too short of a timeline, and you're making bad decisions because of that, right? If I would have asked you, would you give this property to your kids? I would have said, no, I don't want my kids having a C-class apartment building 8 states away and that was built in the 1970s. No, I don't want to do. Well, start making better decisions based on true legacy, right? Your brand is legacy. You need to do that. And that was a very eye-opening thing, and something I've learned. And I've had a lot of life lessons in the past 2 years because of that deal. And then, but you're right, it's a blessing. It's this unbelievable, horrible event to go and live through. And at the same time, my team is like bulletproof now. And my mindset is infinitely clear. And I'm saying no to everything that isn't in line with exactly the focus that I want. And I'll be 40 this year, right? And it was like, took me from ego to being like, dude, humble. You need to be humbled, because if you're doing this on a $100 million decision, what's going to happen on a $1 billion decision?
Absolutely.
And so I want to say thank you for that.
Well, man, I'm so proud of you, and I don't know what your beliefs are, Tim, but I just feel like I have to say it. About 18 months ago, a little bit more, I accepted God in my life. Never. I was one that didn't believe in God, and I'm at Thanksgiving a couple years ago at our house, and everyone prays like they normally do, and my daughter's praying, and everyone has their hands bowed, holding hands, and I do the same drill every year, holding hands. And I look up because I said, my daughter Priscilla, I say to myself, I said, man, she's going for a long marathon here. I'm actually saying that. And I look up and I'm really looking at everyone, my immediate core. And they're in a moment, and I'm not sharing that moment. Nothing happened right there, dude, but it caught my attention. Fast forward about 6 months later, I'm in Cabo speaking at a real estate event. And anyways, I accepted God in my life. And I do believe, Tim, self-growing is so good. You can never stop growing. There's never a ceiling. And I do believe he's been giving me messages all along, putting it right in front of me. And there's a saying, I don't know how it goes. Well, I was looking for help, and God tells you, oh, put this in front of you, that in front of you, and you don't see it. It's almost like we were talking about during this podcast. You just don't see the fleas. I put it right in front of you, and he's put everything in front of me, dude. And maybe he put me in front of you that day. And I have yet to read a Bible, just for full transparency. So I do have my own relationship with God. Most people have a relationship with God because they come in crisis or an event. Not me. I'm so blessed. I'm so freaking blessed. And so my point being is that maybe that message, there's messages there, man, right in front of us. There's people in front of you that you're really not seeing because it's all dusty for you. So start where you're at, no matter where you're at financially. If you're looking for growth, always know you got to be making cuts, almost like Jack Welch, mandatory, the best CEO on the planet. Every year, no matter what the performance was, the low 10%, go. Who's your low 10%? Who's affecting your mindset? Who's giving you constipation?
As you're talking, I keep on thinking of, like there's these, they say God whispers to you, right? And tries to wake you up in these different ways. And sometimes it's a feather, right? And it's like kind of a tickle on you, and sometimes you just kind of blow it off. Well, the next time it comes around, it's a hammer and smashes you in the face. And if you still don't listen, finally a freight train comes and really puts you in perspective, puts you on your back, and you get, what just happened? And I think we go through that, and for some reason there's these things in the back of our head that we hear about and we think about and we reflect on, and you're like, it's not going to happen to me. Oh, well, an ego just kind of pushes it away, pushes it to the back of your mind. And you do that enough times, and all of a sudden here comes the hammer, and then all of a sudden here comes the freight train. And after that conversation with you, I had to put everything on. I paused every acquisition. We were buying 1,000 to 2,000 apartments a year
Wow.
for a
Wow.
couple of years leading up to that. Now C-class, right? Your stuff is way nicer than mine's. Average about $100,000 a door. Yours at $300,000 a door, which is the next step for me. That's where I'm going. It's just A-class, nice stuff, built in the past 20 years or newer, and in my own backyard too. And we self-manage, and we put good fixed rate debt on it, and we hold it forever. That's the business model. And so I went back, I paused all acquisitions, we stopped everything, raised $20 million for this deal, ended up buying out those two other partners, poured money into carrying this variable rate debt that kept on going up in 23 and 24. And then the rate cap expired, and it was a hammer every single month trying to come up. It was so hard. But the team, like I said, is like, and by the way, we just refinanced it into fixed rate debt. We reduced our cost of capital by over $200,000 a month.
Wow.
$2.5 million a year of interest just by refinancing this thing. I launched my own debt fund, and I'm going to refinance and save another about $700,000 or $800,000 a year by having my debt fund replace the mezz debt. Saves the project money. I'm able to pay my investors instead. And none of this stuff would have happened unless that freight train hit me, right? And the property appraised, by the way, for $100 million. Incredible. So in 2 years, created $75 million of value, and it sucked. And it was horrible. And at the same time, it was such a blessing, because if it was probably a big hammer. I don't think the freight train would have totally derailed me and maybe go BK and stuff. So thank God I listened to the hammer instead of waiting for the freight train.
I tell you, and that's treasure. That's treasure. I belong to I'm one of 5 founding members of a group called R360 Global. There's 141 members of ours.
I was going to ask you about this. Thank you for bringing it up.
$65 billion in personal net worth. These are individuals that founded a company. Amazing. You think my story is amazing. It's like, these are amazing individuals. Maybe they're not as expressive as I am. Anyways, we all have about $65 billion of personal net worth. They're only entrepreneurs. And one of the requirements is $100 million verifiable net worth, but you got to be super cool. The ego, that boat has left the dock, because the last thing we want is have any egos. We've lived with them. We were one of them. And now we all get along good. We invest together. We travel together. Amazing, amazing. And when we sit in a room, and maybe we're getting presented with an offering or whatever, the number one requirement of all of us, did he or she or they go to hell and come back? Those are the ones we invest with. Mm. That is your story, because anybody can hit it out of the park for the last 20 years before things changed. Stevie Wonder could have hit it out of the park.
Yep.
But you now are that all-star investor because of that event. You had to go through that, and you stood up tall, and you got through it, and you look what the outcome was. Amazing. Congratulations.
No, I appreciate it. It was something you got to go through, and thank you for, and we've talked a couple times since then, yep. And you've spoken at a couple events, and you've always acknowledged me and said, yep. Some amazing, incredible things. And man, I appreciate it. And I'm excited to, support. And
you got great kids. You got your family's amazing. You're very blessed.
Yeah, I am. And I think that's what keeps you centered too, of as bad as things get, you don't focus on what's in front. Like, guess what? My kids are healthy. My wife is happy. We still are able to put food on the table. Like, everything's okay. There's going to be these seasons and, valleys that you got to go through. And at the same time, man, focus on what you've got. Focus on looking back and how far you've come, even though none of us are where we want to be. And we all have these big ambitions, and we all have great things that we want to continue to accomplish, and impact that we want to continue to make. And at the same time, man, it's like there's so much to be thankful for. And that's where the true yep. Real legacy and true real wealth is built, is in that gratitude and making sure that you have that.
And one thing I would like to squeeze in, if I may, Tim, to your viewers and listeners, and man, this is a tip, and take it really serious, at least my testimony. I can't give anyone else's testimony of their story and their outcomes of how, why, and where. If you are fortunate, because physically one day we're not going to be here, but if you're one of the fortunate ones and you live a long, beautiful, healthy life, and you're right on that deathbed, who do you want to be around there? The only ones that are going to be around are the ones that truly matter.
Mm-hmm.
My kids, my grandbabies, my wife. Everyone else that you thought mattered, and they're nice people, really doesn't. So when you think about that and you take a mindful moment, because your minutes are you'll never get, I have something called non-refundable minutes. You'll never get them back. If you take 1 minute to think about what truly matters in your life, and think about if you're so fortunate one day to experience that, you'll really start thinking about clarity. My clarity is so clear, I'm thinking 100 years out. We just did a documentary film, me and my wife and my kids, and we do it through R360, and we're talking to my grandchildren's children on film. Me and Sophie are crying, talking to these individuals that we will never meet, Tim, telling them how much we love them, what we're doing today, how we want you to carry it forward, your core values. See, legacy is not about the money. It's about how you do life. Mm-hmm. Who you are, that standard, that human being. Then the money, I found, comes in waves. I used to chase the money first, and that's why it was a disaster for me, because it amplifies where you're currently at in life. I was chasing the money. I wasn't chasing to be a better Bobby. When I became a better Bobby, dude, the money is like, that's a layup.
It's amazing. Amazing, man. It's awesome hearing your story. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of everything that you've done and all the impact that you've made and continue to make. And, from somebody who you've made a lot of impact on, man, I can't thank you enough. So
thank you,
man. Appreciate you being here. You dropped so many gems and so much great value. Where can people connect with you?
So, my son created a social media account for me, official Bobby Castro on Instagram. It's the same on Facebook and all this stuff. I'm not a fan of social media, but I'm a fan when you really meet the right people, when you focus. I always tell people, don't follow me because my stuff's boring. If you're looking for a lot of lies, a lot of, shiny stuff, you're not going to get it with me. You're probably going to feel awful when you hear my stuff because I'm probably talking to you. Yep. And it's probably what you don't want to hear that you should be listening to.
You need to hear it. Yeah. Awesome.
And social media,
what's beautiful about it is they follow you around. They ask you questions. It's a normal day in your life, but they're documenting your conversation. They're documenting your life, what you got going on, having a conversation to people who aren't as far along as you are. And it's genuine, it's authentic, it's real, and it's real impactful too. So absolutely, everybody go follow Bobby. And I'm going to be out at your event in April. I'm excited to go and spend a couple days with you and bring any value that I can too. So thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Excited to see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Tim.
Hey, well, thank you for being here. Hopefully you got a ton of great value out of this episode. We try to give as much free value as possible across all of our social media platforms. So please make sure that you're connected with us. We are at Legacy Wealth on YouTube. We are at Tim Bratz on all other social media platforms, and we're available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. The best way that you can support this podcast is by just subscribing to our YouTube channel, by liking the video, by commenting on it, and by sharing it with anyone else who might get some great value out of it. So thank you again for being here. We'll see you next Sunday on the Legacy Podcast.